Hello everybody, welcome to the second part of The Wire Season 2 review. We'll be going over episodes 7 through 12, which is the end of the season. Then I will give you my overall grading. Again, spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alert. Where's my marker at? There it is. But again, going through all the major 90% of scene by scene, anything the viewer would have thought in their head from the writers. So at the end of episode 6, D'Angelo was just strangled in prison. So it starts off, Bodie buys funeral arrangements for D'Angelo, decorations in the shape of the towers. Russell and Bunk tried to get the computer clone approval from Jay. Trying to find the shipping manifest, the police are, and Bodie is getting, goes in there, his homie just he strangled himself, talk about being a bitch. But then he's like, yeah, for that real remembrance, let's get the shape of the towers. So that was pretty funny. Nikki wants upfront cash from Frog to work his package, and $210 back pay for shortchanging Zig. Just the guy that was ripping off Zig, one of the white boy dealers. Stringer pays the cousin of the dude who killed D'Angelo. Avon didn't know. Basically, Stringer went behind Avon's back and had D'Angelo killed without anyone else knowing. Herc and Carver get a high-level bug for $12.50 collateral. Basically, they're trying to gather more evidence. They go to a pawn shop. They have this bug that they put into a tennis ball, and it's worth $12.50. And both Herc and Carver are broke, so Carver ends up putting his credit card as collateral. Daniel denies the Jane Does from Rawls. Russell's tell Frank PD is off the Can Girls case. Lester watches computer in real time. Basically, Russell, the dock patrol lady that's friends with Frank, tells him that they're off the case to start gathering more data, act like it's done. Stringer consoles Brianna, who's Dee's mom. I think in the previous one I said Brianna was Dee's baby mama, but I'm not sure who that one was. But Brianna is definitely D'Angelo's mom. Ziggy finds out he knocked up some slam piece. Frank and a union guy go to a tech pitch, and the slam piece ends up being a joke. Prez and Greg sit on the girls' club. Basically, they're watching the docks, the warehouse, and a brothel that they've located. The fraternity papers of Zig are a prank from the bar guys. Prez followed Russians to the 6th floor. Basically, it might have been either Prez or McNulty, but basically Kima and I think it's McNulty actually go into the place where they think the brothel's at, and Kima acts like she's trying to use the bathroom, and I think it's McNulty goes and sees where they're at on the floor. Frog throws the tennis ball with the bug unknowingly and gets run over by a truck. Basically, they put Herc and Carver put the bug in a tennis ball, put it right on the street to get the audio from him. And Frog is just bouncing it, just like playing with the tennis ball, and just throws it. And they all freak out because it's the $1,200 collateral, and it gets destroyed. So Carver's not happy about that. Frank's still working with the Greeks. Last time I said I wasn't sure if he was completely done or not. Dee's funeral happens. Proposition Joe wants to sell his dope through Avon's towers. Basically, Avon's in jail, Stringer's running things, but they have terrible dope, and Avon has good real estate, so Proposition Joe wants to kind of partner up in that way. Frank pays some guy for the Grand Pier and canal routes. Russell and Lester spot a disappearing can, and Greggs and Prez follow. And Bunk does too, to a warehouse. So that's why when the first time they get notice on the warehouse. String visits Avon in prison discussing D, basically saying, Avon, you couldn't have stopped this. He just killed himself when he obviously had him killed. In Proposition Joe's offer, and talks about Proposition Joe's offer, Avon says no. Herc and Carver see Nick Sobotka supplying and get his car tags. Greggs photographs Proposition Joe going to the Greeks' warehouse. A crate falls on the dock's boy legs, crushing them. One of them gets amputated. Frank pays his wife. And again, I'm not sure what that means. For Daniel, in final one for episode 7, Daniels finally agrees to take on the Jane Does. Again, they're just playing hot potato with the Jane Does. Nobody wants to have 14 murders they can't clear, but Daniels finally agrees as long as he gets what he wants for his team. Now episode 8. Episode 8, McNulty gets trashed because Elena won't take him back, and he bangs a waitress. Well, crashes drunk, then bangs a waitress. Basically, him and Elena went out for the road. He wants to get back together. She says no. He's all distraught, and then he hooks up with a waitress. Rhonda agrees Daniel's unit has probable cause on the warehouse and Horse's cell phone. Bunk joins the investigation. The Dock Boys. Now, the first one I called them the Dock Boys. I didn't think I heard that explicitly until the second part of the season, but they definitely called them McDock Boys explicitly. So Dock Boys hype up Zig to punch the guy who faked the paternity papers. He gets put on top of a can. Basically, this dude's way bigger than Ziggy, and Ziggy's getting anxious, uncomfortable. He's always getting emotional. He's always getting upset. So they're like, yeah, go punch him, go punch him. Punches the guy. He literally puts him on a forklift and puts him on top of a can so he can't get down. It's like a big prank. Frank learns his phone has been flagged and it won't be canceled for non-payment. He becomes aware that his phone is tagged. Poot and Bodie complain the pit is dead. Frank's brother refuses to help him in the union because Frank greased it. Basically, Frank's brother, who is Nikki's dad, doesn't want anything to do with Frank because he knows he's doing dirt. Ziggy buys a duck. Lester and Bunk ask Daniels to ask Rawls to put McNulty on the case. Herc and Carver register Herc's cousin as a confidential informant to pay off the broken bug. Basically, they get some sort of payment if they get information, like the state can release funds if they get confidential informants, so they just sign up Herc's cousin. Rawls approves McNulty's transfer. The phone wire is signed by the judge. Zig is upset Nicky is running the business. He basically, Zig wanted to sell drugs. Nicky starts selling drugs now once he got paid for the cameras with half drugs, half cash, heroin. Nicky pays Zig and Zig just kind of throws it out the window like, I want to be the big guy. McNulty is assigned to go undercover at the whorehouse. PD prepares for another incoming Greek can. McNulty and Greggs get a contact card for the girls off a customer. Basically, McNulty, they're sitting on the whorehouse. They see some dude come out of the whorehouse knowing solicitation of sex is illegal, basically saying you can go home if you give us the contact for how we get a date with these people. Frank learns Russell is still working with city police. Frank plans to lose a clean can to see if he's being watched. PD gets the Greek's number when they get the dead can. Or they get the Greek's number when they get the clean can. McNulty calls the whorehouse from the bar with Russell. They're kind of goes back to her place but does not bang. You can tell it's kind of like maybe some sexual tension between McNulty and Russell. They're at the bar getting a drink, kind of being friendly, go back to her house, have another beer, and it's just like, oh, it's getting late, and they just kind of leave it at that. Poot, Bodie, and the goons run another crew off of a corner. And basically, they said the pit's dead, so they could run off some other Cheeses group, I think, off the corner. Frank, Nick, and Spiros and the Greek meet in the diner. The Greek thinks Frank's play was smart, and they plan to send more clean cans to throw off PD. Again, this is Frank's been wanting to meet the Greek, and that was the first time he's done so. Episode 9. Episode 9, Bodie and Poot sell on the new corner, and they have a gunfight in the street with the crew they just kicked off, and a stray kills a 9-year-old neighborhood boy. The warehouse crew is using code now. Frank isn't using his cell phone at all. Bodie is told to dump their weapons in the harbor, and it lands on a ship. Literally, Stringer tells Bodie to clean the guns and throw them away, throws them off the top of the bridge, and it lands right on a transporting canal ship. Nicky gets a drug supplier from the Greek. They disappear clean cans. Police have big raids in the pit because of the dead kid. String agrees to prop Joe selling in the towers without telling Avon. The whorehouse denies McNulty. Basically, McNulty says that he's, out of town guy trying to get a date, and they're kind of wary, saying nope. Ziggy's duck dies from alcohol. He just turning the duck up at the bar, and it's real emotional for Ziggy. Ziggy goes to the camera buyer Gleekus without Nick, pitching 3 stolen Mercedes. McNulty gets into the brothel with an English accent. McNulty uses his FBI Connect to inquire about the Greek's crew. Police interrogate Bodie and have the guns. Like they said that the guns on the ship, they literally interrogate Bodhi and sit the guns down in front of him. But they say his prints are on the wrong gun, so he's not too worried, and he doesn't really get in trouble with Stringer either. Maybe an FBI agent is helping the Greek. Turns out he is. The Greek plans to reopen. PD get the new number to tap. String scolds the crew over the guns. Nicky re-ups from White Mike with the Greek's help. Basically, Nicky's looking for the supplier. He's like, go get it from White Mike, some dude Nicky knew from high school, but he's okayed by the Greeks, and Mike agrees. Lester looks for bodies with no face or hands because Sergey on the tap basically says, someone's worried about a body. I forget I don't know if it's Frank or Nick or whoever, but he's like, if there's no hands and no face, then it wasn't us. A $4 million bill will pass. $4 million bill will pass that helps the dock boys. Whether I'm not sure if it's the Grand Pier or just in general. The FBI scan a can for counterterrorism, and they find a bunch of crack cocaine. McNulty goes, and that was someone tipped him off about that. I'm not really sure what the play was there from who, but McNulty goes to the brothel, and arrests are made. After McNulty, he goes in there. Again, he's acting like he's trying to go to a whorehouse, and he was pretty involved in the act of getting laid when they were making the arrests. It was pretty funny. And he had to type up a police report about it, so it was pretty funny scenes. FBI secure $45 million worth of crack cocaine at Frank's dock. But again, Frank doesn't get arrested, it's just a seizure for the FBI. But I think the Greeks tipped him off. Avon is still against Prop Joe's deal, and he's looking for a connect and has a muscle from New York. Basically because Bird, Stinkum, Weebay, they're all in prison or dead. So the Barksdale crew is running low on muscle, so they hire this guy on contract. His name is Brother Muzone, clearly a Muslim, and he's just, again, like real, kind of like Breaking Bad, just again this exaggerated figure of a hitman. Again, just real, he reads books all day, he talks real proper, and then he just blows your brains out or stuff like that. Episode 10, PD starts GPS tracking cars and keeps collecting evidence. Eastside starts selling in the towers. PD has probable cause on the Greek cell phone. Frank is running for re-election for union treasurer, and again, professionally, I have the main union black dude. There's just, I don't know his name in the show, but under Frank, there's a main black dude that's also running for treasurer, and there's kind of like a back and forth between them. Valchek wants FBI to recover the surveillance van. Herc and Carver get put on the diner instead of the warehouse, and they don't feel appreciated. Herc and Carver, again, during the raids later, they take a little more money, but they're not feeling appreciated within Daniel's group. Omar gives money to Butchie, who I guess is like the bank. He's just getting another bar owner, bartender. Ziggy and his dudes steal the Mercedes. Nikki's girls finds a wad of money in the ceiling, $4,000. She's suspicious, and Kima and her girls are having a baby. Brother Muzone tells the Eastside crew to leave. Again, Avon is not aware that the Eastside has been arranged by Stringer. So Brother Muzone pulls up on the Eastside crew. They get mouthy. Muzone shoots Cheese in the shoulder with rat shot. Basically not a real bullet, enough to do some damage, but it's like, if you don't leave after this one, I'll kill you. FBI wants to prosecute the Daniels investigation with RICO, mainly to break up the union more so than any of the specific charges. And the PD and the FBI begin working together. Now there's a lot more law enforcement in Daniels' makeshift office. Proposition Joe knows a dude who might try to hit Brother Muzone. Turns out to be Omar. Gleekus shortchanges Ziggy for the cars. He agreed to 20%, goes back to 10%. They scuffle. Ziggy's real upset, gets a gun, kills Gleekus, and wounds his employee. And he just, again, this real ephemeral, ethereal scene where Ziggy's like, oh no, I just killed the dude. He's in his car about to leave, and he just waits to get arrested. Proposition Joe and Butchie meet about Omar and the Barksdale situation. Not exactly what happened in that scene, like what the play were or what they agreed to. The Greeks seem to have an FBI helper. They do. Basically just someone, I don't know how the Greeks help this FBI dude, but anytime the FBI is filing something, the one agent somewhere gets noticed and calls the Greek or Spiros. And I think there is the Greek, the main guy, but I think they're all called the Greeks. And Frank and Nicky freak out about Ziggy. Basically, Frank's like, "Why? How could you not be with your cousin?" And Nikki's like, "How could you not be with your son?" But they're real just upset and distraught about what has happened. Valchek blows up at Daniels, pulls Prez off the case. Prez punches Valchek, who is his father-in-law, in front of, again, all the FBI, all of the police department people. So some clear insubordination there with the punch. Bunk, McNulty, and a Fed watch the Greeks from a ship. Again, this is the McNulty's Fed contact from even season 1, but I don't even have his name, so I just call him the main Fed. And the Fed watch the Greeks from a ship in the harbor, watching Spiros. They're just in the harbor watching either the diner or, I think it's the diner. The Greeks plan to clean house at the appliance store after the murder. Nikki goes to the diner looking for Spiros. Diner manager says he doesn't know a Spiros. Basically, the Greeks are trying to pack up now after what's going on. And they send a bunch of Sergey, the main muscle dude for the Greeks, and a couple other dudes just to clean house and get rid of all the drugs or any evidence there. Bunk, FBI, McNulty gets Spiros' text message in Greek from the cell phone company. It says, "Shut down immediately." Nikki and his girl mourn Ziggy. Basically, at the end of the episode, they're just like, they know Ziggy's life is completely fucked. And so they're just kind of reminiscing about the good times. The PD race for a warrant, while the Greeks race to cover their tracks at the appliance store. Episode 11. Episode 11. Police conduct raids at Nikki's, the appliance store, the diner, the warehouse. Basically all of the major places of interest. They find some heroin and money at Nikki's, but he's not there. And nothing really on the Greeks. They get some probably cocaine residue off of the main shower. They flushed everything down, but most of the evidence is gone. Daniels doesn't arrest Spiros, hoping to get to the Greek, who they still don't have a picture of. Valchek arrests Frank. Daniels is furious at Jay in homicide for not noticing Zig was relevant to his investigation. Basically, Jay processed he signed a confession to the murder, but Jay doesn't connect the Sobotka of Ziggy to Sobotka of Nikki and Frank. PD interrogate the arrested. White Mike is the one who talks. Again, all the Greeks are being interrogated. White Mike talks basically out of the whole group. Omar and Stringer sit down about Brandon. String blames brother Muzone. Omar looks for payback. Basically, again, Stringer's going behind Avon's back on most of this stuff at this point, all of it. But basically, Stringer's trying to get Omar to kill brother Muzone. Frank visits Ziggy in prison. PD lose Fed support after they got the doc union guys. Basically, the Fed just wanted to break up the union. Frank and his brother argue. Omar gets brother Muzone's location from String and plots to kill him. Frank works a shift for another dock boy to get paid. Basically, again, he's been arrested, he's out on bail, but he goes in there and Frank runs the union, so I guess he doesn't typically unload ships or work like the other guys, but he basically says, give me your card, I'm going to clock in as you, and I'm going to go work your shift, and you're going to get paid for it. Just again, trying to be one of the boys and trying to work in with the crew, stuff like that. PD tails Spiros. They see him meeting with someone at a hotel. Russell's the one following her. Spiros switches cars. The Greek walks right past Greg's, leaving the parking garage. And again, we have another scene where Frank says, I think it's Frank, I could give a fuck. I couldn't give a fuck for the 5th or 6th time in these TV shows. If you couldn't give a fuck, you wouldn't give a fuck. FBI have nothing on Frank, wanted to bust the union. Frank loses votes for the Grand Pier, which is a big deal for the union guys. Basically saying we can revisit this if the charges go away. The Greek wants to kill Frank, Nikki. Spiros says he has a plan to get Ziggy free to keep Frank and Nikki silent. Basically, Spiros has an affection for Nikki, basically trying to save their lives, saying, if we can use our FBI contact or have the dude who was at Gleekas's, the employee of Gleekas that was shot, that didn't die, they can manipulate a witness to say that Ziggy was acting in self-defense. Which he really couldn't because he had already signed the statement. But at this point, Spiros is basically keeping Frank and Nikki alive. Omar pulls up on brother Muzone. He's staying in a rundown hotel. He's got one muscle dude out front, his bodyguard or watch out. 2 chicks come up and get his attention. Omar clocks him over the head, goes inside, shoots Brother Mouzone on sight, and learns that he didn't torture Brandon. Basically, Brother Mouzone, who's a hired hitman's like, you have wrong information, and quickly Omar learns that it was Stringer who set him up. Russell wants Frank to come in voluntarily. He does. Again, Russell and Frank have a friendly relationship. Spiros tells Nicky about his plan for Ziggy. Frank agrees to cooperate. Is told him and Nicky will get only probation. Basically, Frank has a proffer with the PD and says, I'll give you everything I can. Just keep Nicky out of jail, and they can't do much for Ziggy. Nicky tells Frank about the Greeks, and the witness could get Ziggy free. And then basically Frank and Nicky go back and forth. Nicky wants to go with Frank to meet the Greeks, and Frank is just like, no, you're going to stay away from these guys. I'm going to go meet with them. The Greeks' FBI contact sees the proffer right before Frank meets with them and calls the Greek. And again, that's the end of episode 11. Episode 12, the season finale. So again, they were going to meet under an overpass, and it's just Frank going to meet the Greeks, and literally as he's walking up, the main Greek gets a phone call from his FBI contact. Nicky looks for Frank, sees his abandoned truck at the overpass meeting the next day. Frank's body is pulled out of the harbor. He was clearly stabbed up a bunch, his throat was cut. PD get nothing on Spiros after spotting the tail. Stringer visits Brother Mouzone in the hospital, says he'll take care of the shooters himself. Brother Mouzone does. Stringer says, what happened, and there's some sort of tension or a bad thing, or again, maybe Brother Mouzone knowing something with Stringer's going on, but Brother Mouzone says, our agreement is absolved. Nicky wants to kill the Greeks for killing Frank. Bubbles is arrested from stealing from an ambulance. Russell is torn up about Frank's death. Valchek wants to prosecute his son-in-law Prez. Nicky turns himself in on the drug warrant. The Greeks have a shipment at the docks that they can't move because Frank is now dead, but they just plan to abandon it. McNulty and Greggs ask Bubs and Johnny's with Bubs on the arrest, have any information to not go to jail. Basically, junkies from the street, if you can provide us information about murder or just any open investigation, we can let you go. And he tells them Bubbles saw Mouzone shooting cheese, so they tell him about that. Nicky cooperates with Daniel's unit, learns Ziggy was fucked regardless because he had the signed admission of guilt, and they had like the sale receipt of Ziggy buying the gun. He identifies the Greek in a picture, and that's the first time they really see the Greek. They have a picture of Spiros, some lawyer in a suit, and the actual Greek. They think the dude in the suit is the Greek, and Nicky's like, no, it's this guy. Bubs and Johnny are released for their information. Nicky gets WITSEC. For him, his wife, and his kid. Herc and Carver are still sitting on Nicky's house after he's already turned himself in, and they get furious at Daniels and Lester. Because they're not feeling appreciated in the unit. Omar talks to Butchie about going after Stringer. Bunk and Russell go to Philly about the ship captain murder. Again, whoever was responsible for the 14 girls that the Greeks killed, and they get videotapes from the records. And those videotapes clearly indicate Sergei directly for sure. And so that's what happens there. Horseface dumps the hot can. Well, he says that, and it doesn't actually do so. Because the PD get there. Proposition Joe meets with Spiros about supply before the Greeks leave. Basically, Proposition Joe's been working with the Greeks have been supplying the drugs, and basically saying, Spiros tells Proposition Joe, there'll be new faces that will come and meet you. And he says basically nothing else after that. PD get the hot can with 200 plus kilograms of that raw. Probably heroin, I think it's heroin or cocaine. String tells Avon about Mouzone. Just again, like the being shot, meeting with him, and again, Avon's like mad at Stringer for asking him like who did it or something. So again, didn't really follow exactly what happened in that conversation. He gets the okay from Avon to work with Proposition Joe. So at this point, I thought Stringer was going to be in some hot shit with Avon, but Avon agrees to let Stringer run it how he sees fit until he gets back. McNulty and Greggs are watching. Basically, after Stringer meets with Avon at the jail, he comes out. Proposition Joe and Stringer handshake, and McNulty and Greggs are taking pictures. Lester and Bunk have Sergei dead to rights on the ship murder, tells about the Can girls, and I have something else I can't read. But he tells about the Can girls and the Greek. Basically, Sergei's facing the death penalty, and so he's trying to not die. The Greek is already gone. Oh, he tells him about the location. He says, I can show you where they're at in the hotel. They all rush in, and it's too late. The next scene is the Greek and Spiros at the airport. You know, it's always business. The Greek's leaving to go do something else. And the FBI, and then so that's kind of like the end. And now you have all of the police people at the bar, the FBI, and the police department, Baltimore Police Department at the bar. And the FBI agent tells Daniels the leak was the FBI. Basically, they're not sure. It's not really like you don't see the Greeks' contact with the FBI like really being aware of Daniels, like there is a leak, but the FBI tells him that it'd be a big shit show if this came out publicly. I think the FBI agent says he's going to end up working in Montana if anyone finds out. Nicky goes into work. Basically said he's in WITSEC, but he's just like, what am I going to do today? Goes into work, and just trying to get a ship. There's no ships to unload. And you get just like a reminiscent end of the season type of scene. And there's nothing to do. There's season ending scenes. The Sergei is the drug connect for the Greeks. Sergei's the muscle for the Greeks. Horse and Zig being in court. Again, there's no dialogue. It's just wrapping up the season. Proposition Joe's still moving product, and police concluding their investigation. Basically, just packing up their setup. Bringing down the billboards, the whiteboards, the deceased, active, this guy, that guy, your typical police billboard. So I thoroughly enjoyed the season. I'll keep it at a B+, being your typical crime show. But this one was highly rated, and I'm thoroughly enjoying this one. So I'll be back probably in a week or two with Season 3, the first 6 episodes, and probably I'll do some movie reviews. There just hasn't been much in the theaters. Some stuff coming out in the next month that I like to watch. So I hope you enjoyed my review. And if you want to go, I highly recommend The Wire Season 2. Thanks for watching.